You know, there's a curious paradox that haunts those who walk the spiritual path. The more awake you become, the lonelier you feel. Isn't that strange? You'd think that consciousness, that awareness, that deep seeing into the nature of things would bring you closer to people. But instead, you find yourself standing at a distance, watching the dance of life as if through glass. And love, that thing everyone seeks, that merger, that union, seems to slip further away the closer you get to truth. Why is that? Let me tell you something. When you begin to wake up, when you start to see through the games people play, the masks they wear, the roles they perform, you become dangerous. Not in a violent sense, but dangerous to the illusion. You see, most people are asleep. They're walking through life in a dream, following scripts written by culture, by fear, by the desperate need to be somebody. And love, as they know it, is part of that script. It's a transaction, a contract. You give me security, I'll give you validation. You make me feel special, I'll make you feel needed. It's a beautiful dance, really. But it's still a dance of egos trying to complete themselves through another. And you've seen through that. You've realized that you are already whole, that there is no self to complete, no emptiness to fill, no lack that another person can remedy. You've touched something beyond the ego, beyond the name and the story and the endless craving for more. And so when you meet someone, when you look into their eyes, you're not looking for salvation. You're not looking for them to make you feel alive. You're already alive, fully, completely. But here's the problem. Most people don't want that. They want someone who needs them. They want someone who will play the game, who will chase and be chased, who will create drama and tension and all the delicious suffering that makes you feel like you're really living. They want someone who will complete the sentence they've been speaking their whole lives. I am not enough unless. And you've stopped speaking that sentence. So you sit there in your clarity, in your peace, and you watch the world go by. You see couples clinging to each other like drowning swimmers, dragging each other down in the name of love. You see the desperate negotiations, the silent resentments, the fear disguised as devotion, and you think, I don't want that. And you're right not to want it. But the trouble is, you still want something. You still feel that pull, that longing, that ancient human desire to merge with another soul. And that's where the real paradox lives. Because you can't go back to sleep. You can't pretend you don't see what you see. You can't fake the neediness, the dependency, the ego dance that most relationships are built on. But you also can't quite transcend the longing. You're caught between two worlds, too awake to play the game, but too human to stop wanting to play. Let me ask you this. What if the problem isn't that you can't find love? What if the problem is that you're still looking for it in the old way? What if the love you're seeking is itself a leftover script from the dream you've woken up from? Think about it. When you were asleep, love was a solution. It was the answer to your incompleteness, your loneliness, your fear of death. It was the magic spell that would transform you from a fragment into a whole. And the culture loves this story. Songs, movies, poems, all singing the same tune. You complete me. I can't live without you. You are my everything. But now you know better. You know that no one completes you because you were never incomplete. You know that you can live without anyone because you are life itself. You know that no one is your everything because everything is already here, inside you, around you, flowing through you like breath. So what happens when you try to fit that realization into the old model of love? It doesn't work. It's like trying to pour the ocean into a teacup. The container is too small. The old idea of love, romantic love, possessive love, needy love, can't hold what you've become. And yet you still feel something, a pull, a yearning, and you wonder, am I broken? Am I too spiritual? Have I lost my humanity? No, you haven't lost anything. You've just outgrown the costume. But here's the twist. You can't move forward until you stop trying to find love at all. You have to let the whole thing go. Not the feeling, not the openness, not the connection, but the search. The hunt. The project of finding someone who will finally understand you, who will meet you at your level, who will dance with you in the space beyond ego. Because the moment you're searching, you're back in the dream. You're back in the story of lack, of incompleteness, of I need something outside myself to be whole. And as long as you're in that story, you'll keep attracting people who are also in that story. And the dance will continue, and you'll wonder why it never works. But what happens when you stop searching? What happens when you let go of the entire project of finding love, of being loved, of even wanting to be seen and understood? What happens when you simply are? That's when something shifts. That's when the universe begins to rearrange itself around your stillness. That's when love, not the transactional kind, not the ego kind, but the real kind, begins to find you. But we're not there yet. First, you have to understand why the search itself is the problem, why the very act of looking keeps you from seeing, why the spiritually awake, the ones who should be the most capable of love, are the ones who feel the most alone. Let's go deeper. You see, the spiritually awake person has developed a very particular kind of vision. They can see through illusions. They can spot a mask at 50 paces. They can sense when someone is performing, pretending, hiding behind a persona. And this vision is both a gift and a curse. It's a gift because you're no longer fooled. You don't waste time on relationships that are just elaborate distractions. You don't invest your energy in people who are still asleep, still playing the game, still desperate to be somebody. You value authenticity, presence, truth, and you won't settle for less. But it's a curse because, well, almost everyone is still playing the game. Almost everyone is still performing. Almost everyone is still hiding. And so your standards become so high, your vision so clear, that you find yourself alone in a room full of people. You're surrounded by potential partners, potential friends, potential connections, but you can't connect because you see too much. You see the fear behind the confidence. You see the neediness behind the generosity. You see the emptiness behind the smile. And you think, I can't do this. I can't pretend I don't see what I see. So you withdraw. You protect yourself. You create a fortress of solitude and call it enlightenment. And maybe, in some way, it is. Maybe it's necessary. Maybe you need to be alone for a while to fully digest what you've learned, to stabilize in your awakeness without the distraction of relationship. But if you're honest with yourself, you'll admit that it's also loneliness. It's also isolation. It's also a subtle form of arrogance, this idea that you're too awake for ordinary love, too enlightened for messy human connection. Because here's the thing, awakening doesn't mean you transcend humanity. It means you finally embrace it, fully, without resistance, without judgment. You stop trying to be something other than human. You stop trying to escape the messiness, the vulnerability, the beautiful, tragic chaos of being alive in a body, with a heart, with desires and fears and longings. And love, real love, is the most human thing there is. It's not a spiritual achievement. It's not a reward for consciousness. It's not something you earn by meditating enough or reading enough books or seeing through enough illusions. It's just life expressing itself through connection, through touch, through the simple, sacred act of being seen and seeing another. But the spiritually awake person has a hard time with this, because they've spent so much time and energy transcending the ego, dissolving the self, letting go of attachment, that they've forgotten how to just be with someone, how to show up, how to be vulnerable, how to let themselves be loved. You see, there's a difference between detachment and avoidance. Detachment is freedom. It's the ability to be fully present without clinging, without needing the moment to be different than it is. Avoidance is fear. It's the refusal to engage, the unwillingness to risk, the hiding behind spiritual concepts to protect yourself from being hurt. And if you're spiritually awake and can't find love, chances are you're not as detached as you think. You're avoiding. You're using your awakeness as a shield. You're telling yourself that you're too evolved for ordinary relationships, when really you're just too scared to be ordinary, to be simple, to be human. Because here's what no one tells you about awakening. It's not the end of vulnerability, it's the beginning of it. When you wake up, when you see through the ego, when you realize that there's nothing to defend and nothing to prove, you become more open, not less, more tender, not less, more capable of being hurt, because you're no longer armored by the illusion of separation.
And love requires that openness. Love requires you to show up without a script, without a plan, without knowing how it's going to turn out. Love requires you to risk being misunderstood, being rejected, being seen in all your flawed, beautiful humanity. And that's terrifying. Especially for someone who's worked so hard to transcend the ego, to rise above the drama, to be free. So instead, you wait. You wait for the perfect person. The one who's as awake as you are. The one who speaks your language. The one who won't trigger you, won't challenge you, won't ask you to come down from your mountaintop and get messy in the valley. But that person doesn't exist. Or if they do, they're waiting too. Waiting on their own mountaintop. And you'll never meet because you're both too busy waiting. Here's the secret. Love doesn't happen on the mountaintop. It happens in the valley. In the mess. In the mud. In the places where you don't have all the answers. Where you can't hide behind your wisdom. Where you have to just fumble your way through like everyone else. And maybe that's what the spiritually awake need to learn. That awakening isn't about escaping life. It's about diving deeper into it. That consciousness isn't a ladder you climb to get away from humanity. It's a doorway you walk through to finally fully arrive in it. So the question isn't, why can't I find love? The question is, am I willing to be loved? Am I willing to let someone see me, really see me, without my spiritual armor? Am I willing to risk being ordinary, being simple, being just another human fumbling toward connection? Because if you can let go of the need to be special, to be enlightened, to be above it all, then love will find you. Not because you've finally become worthy of it, but because you've finally become available to it. But there's more to this. There's another layer, another paradox. What if the reason the spiritually awake can't find love is because they're looking for love instead of being love? Stay with me here. This is where it gets interesting. When you're asleep, when you're lost in the ego, love is something you seek, something you chase, something outside yourself that you need in order to feel complete. And the whole project of your life becomes about finding it, earning it, keeping it. You're like a beggar going door to door asking, will you love me? Will you make me feel whole? But when you wake up, when you see through the illusion of separation, you realize something profound. You are love, not in some abstract poetic sense, but literally. The essence of what you are beneath all the thoughts and stories and identities is pure aliveness, pure presence, pure connection. And that is love. Not as an emotion, not as a transaction, but as the very substance of existence itself. So the question changes. It's no longer, how do I find love? It becomes, how do I express what I am? And this is where most spiritually awake people get stuck, because they've understood the first part, that they are love, but they haven't figured out how to express it. They've become so identified with being awareness, with being consciousness, with being the witness, that they've forgotten how to be a lover, how to reach out, how to touch, how to say, I see you. I'm here. Let's dance. They sit in their enlightenment like a candle in a sealed jar. The flame is there, the light is there, but it's not reaching anyone. It's not warming anyone. It's just burning quietly alone, and they wonder why no one sees them. But here's the thing, if you are love, then your life becomes an expression of that. Not a search, not a project, an expression. And expression requires movement. It requires risk. It requires you to step out of the safety of your inner peace and actually engage with the world. It means you stop waiting for the perfect person and you start loving imperfect people. Right now. Right here. Not romantically necessarily, but genuinely, openly, without agenda. It means you stop withholding yourself until someone proves they're worthy. Because you realize there's nothing to withhold. You're not a precious resource that needs to be guarded. You're an overflowing fountain. And fountains don't ask permission to flow. It means you stop protecting your heart and you start offering it, freely, recklessly, knowing full well that it might be misunderstood, rejected, or ignored. And you do it anyway, because that's what love does, it gives. Not because it needs something in return, but because giving is its nature. And here's the paradox. When you stop looking for love and you start being love, when you stop waiting to receive and you start giving freely, that's when love finds you. That's when the universe conspires to bring you exactly what you've become. Not because you manifested it, not because you did the right spiritual practice, but because you finally aligned with what you actually are. And like attracts like, love attracts love, but, and this is important, the love that finds you won't look like what you expected. It won't be the fairy tale. It won't be the soulmate narrative. It won't complete you or fix you or make you feel like you've finally arrived. It'll be simpler than that, more ordinary, more human. It'll be someone who sees you not as enlightened or special or spiritually advanced, but just as you. In all your complexity, in all your contradiction. Someone who doesn't need you to be perfect. Someone who isn't intimidated by your awareness. Someone who can laugh at the absurdity of it all and still choose to show up day after day without needing it to mean anything more than what it is. And you'll realize that this is what you were looking for all along. Not a spiritual partnership, not a twin flame, not a cosmic union, just a human connection, real, messy, imperfect, alive. And in that ordinariness, you'll find something extraordinary. You'll find that love was never about transcending humanity. It was about embracing it so fully that the divine shines through. So if you're spiritually awake and you can't find love, maybe it's time to stop looking, stop waiting, stop protecting, stop judging, stop holding yourself separate, and start living as what you are. Start being the love you're seeking. Start offering yourself to the world without a guarantee. Start risking your heart in the simplest, most human ways. Because love isn't a destination. It's not something you arrive at after enough awakening, enough healing, enough growth. It's what's left when you stop trying to be anything other than alive. It's the river that's been flowing through you all along, and all you have to do is stop holding it. Just let it flow and then watch what happens. The universe has a way of meeting you where you are, not where you think you should be, not where you're trying to get to, but exactly where you are, right now, in this breath, in this moment. And maybe, just maybe, that's where love has been waiting all along, not on some distant mountaintop, not in some perfect person, but right here, in the ordinary, in the mess, in the beautiful, broken, sacred act of being human.